Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Fantasy Football Football Consistency. Yeah, I've been
That too.
promoting it. We're doing that, but we're actually here for the Fantasy Football Expo podcast. I'm your host, Bob Lung from the Fantasy Football Expo, of course. And the man right beside me is the one, the only Kings Classic champion, Jim Coventry of Rotowire. Jim, how's it going, brother?
Things are extremely well. And yeah, was fortunate to pull off the Kings Classic in 2021. Not so fortunate last year, but that belt prominently displayed over my shoulder.
I see it. Yes, sir.
Yes.
As you should. Absolutely, as you should. Someday I'll get one of those. Someday,
you will,
we'll
100%.
But anyway, thanks for coming on the show. As always, in this thing, we've kind of just talking about and interviewing the sponsors and exhibitors and folks that have not only are going to be a big part of 2023, but also people like you who've kind of been here really even before the Expo because you've been part of the Kings Classic since 2018. So, Jim, let's go way back in your history like mine. You've been around this industry for a while. We're far from young chickens anymore in this world. Talk about your first fantasy football experience when you got into a league and who talked you into it? How did you get in your first fantasy football league? In what year was it, and how did it go for you?
So 1994 is when I began, and I hadn't heard much about fantasy football at all. What I did do was people decades ago played this tabletop baseball game, either called Stratomatic. I played one called Appa. It was the same concept. Yep. And you always had this idea of wanting to manage and run your own team. Mm-hmm. And somehow, someway, I heard something about this fantasy sports, and I really didn't have any guideline, but I just found 11 friends and we put a league together, and that was it. We were drafting on the porch and the back porch, and it was a great social experience. We don't have enough live drafts anymore. The Kings Classic is one. I love that, but that was the first one, and I was dominating early on. There wasn't much football information out there, and so these were casual football fans. I was thirsting for football knowledge anywhere I could get it, and so if there was an emerging trend that was out there, people weren't hearing that on ESPN or what they were watching, whatever their go-tos were, and so my ability to gain knowledge was so far beyond everybody else. I was running up perfect records. A bad season might have been 11-3. I had 2 seasons early on where I ran the table through the playoffs. And obviously the level of challenge of fantasy football is significantly different now.
That's for sure.
There is very little that happens that everybody doesn't know.
Right.
So it's a different world. So anyway, my first biggest success, though, winning those leagues, fine, whatever. I knew what they were. But my third year in, speaking of Appa, well, there were baseball magazines that were out, and Appa put an ad in one of them. They were going to do a national contest and $15 entry fee. And, so they put it out there, and the grand prize was $5,000. There were no trains. It was nice, and I won that one. I almost went wire to wire. Yeah, I almost went wire to wire. I fell out of.
Was it a salary cap? That used to be the thing. Salary cap. Okay.
So here's what they did. It was 16 groups of players. There were a box. There were 5 or 6 players in each group. The superstars were in one, and then the top 5 quarterbacks in the next. So, and you would pick one player from each group. You were given a number of set lineup changes. You'd make your own here. These were done on the phone. You had to phone them in. You had to phone in for results. And so it was very, very archaic, but it was 1996.
Right.
And I fell out of first place for 2 weeks. And I recaptured that, and then I pulled. That was one of my greatest successes early on, just pulling that off. And then in the years to follow, I had, I believe, 8 top 50 finishes in contests, but that now seems like no big deal. Mine were all single entry. There are a lot of people putting in 20 entries. Right. You're playing 20 entries, and you say, "Well, I got a top 50 finish." Well, of course you did. But I was doing single entry. And so when I say that, and I do try to specify that because, so anyway, it was like I mentioned earlier, there wasn't a time if there was knowledge to be found that I wasn't trying to get it and build on what I knew.
Yeah, no. And obviously So that's a perfect segue, because obviously gaining all of that knowledge has brought you to a world that many of us always would strive to be, and that's doing this full time as a full-time job. And you've been with Rotowire for some time now. Talk about how that transition from dominating the local, even the national a little bit world, turned into what is now Rotowire. What other sites did you write for to get there? Or, how did you get to the Rotowire world and be one of the elite people who have this as a full-time job?
The story's funny because the woman who I'm now married to, Corinne, when we were dating, she realized quickly, oh, you watch football all day on Sundays. Well, that's not going to fly. If you're going to do that, you got to make some money.
Right.
And so I actually was an English teacher for 33 years, and I know how to write. One thing I know how to write. And so I had some success in football. And so she said, well, why don't you try to get a job doing fantasy football? And so this was in 2006. Okay. And so again, internet's fine, but we went to a Barnes and Noble bookstore and looked. I went to the back page of every fantasy football magazine to look for contact information for companies. Mm-hmm. And I cold called maybe 5 or 6. Either send out an email if that was the way, or a letter, or whatever I had to do. And then John Hansen gets back to me. And basically what I said, look, I can write. I have some success. I will write for free for a year to get published. John was cool with that. John let me do that. And so I wrote for that year. After the season was over, I was hoping I could work for John on a more regular basis. And so I had sent John an email, and John's incredibly busy. We know that. And I also, though, had heard that Adam Kaplan and Football Injuries were merging with Fantasy Guru at the time. They're Fantasy Points now. And so I assumed they were set with help merging. And so when John didn't reply, I just assumed that's what it was. So now I'm like, okay, I need to find some work. So at this point now, use the internet instead of going to a bookstore. And I cold call 11 companies, and at least I've got some published work. Lenny Papano from Draft Sharks took me on.
Right.
Yeah, love Lenny. And Jared Smola and the guys over there. Worked with them extensively from 2008 till I went to Rotowire in 2016. Great run with them. Yeah, great run with Draft Sharks. Love them. Right. I don't even remember how things just – I think they were doing more in-house work maybe, and I just kind of my workload was lessening, and I wanted more work. So at that point, it's kind of a good time to part ways. And so at that point now, we're back to the cold calling, and Rotowire fortunately took me on, and could not have been a greater blessing, Bob. Yeah. They let me write baseball at first with football. And then after a couple of years, it was just too much with teaching at the time. So then I went to football. And then when we were on one of our Vegas trips where we go every summer, I had mentioned, guys, I think our podcast need a boost. And our media guy, DJ Trainer, said, I got a better idea. I think we could like to have you on Sirius XM. Wow. Didn't see that coming, right?
Right.
And I mean, and I guess the one thing is, me, people know me, I can speak. I have energy and passion, and I'm a communicator. I'm a teacher, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And so I guess, the football knowledge, anybody could pick that up if you're working hard enough. Just keep working. But fortunately, the dynamics worked where I can publicly present and do well enough with that. And of course, always working on those skills too. But that was, of all the things I do for Rotowire, that's been the highlight.
Nice. No, that's awesome. And obviously, like you said, a lot of hard work and going out there, putting yourself out there, making the calls, that's what it took. And congratulations to you. And like I said, you've certainly been a staple in this industry for many years. And everybody who hasn't followed you should be following you for sure. So, again, now you've been at Rotowire since 2016. 2018, we created this little thing called the King's Classic. For most people know the story, but it was just basically a simple I've been playing fantasy football since '85, and I'd been writing my consistency stuff since 2002. And, and obviously I was deep into listening to fantasy sports radio. And the one thing I always heard every year was how cool the labor drafts and the tout war drafts were and how they made them special. They had them in, I think that 2018 was the year that kind of made me make this decision. And they were doing it, and maybe you were there. They were drafting live from the Staten Island AAA Yankees locker room, and people had their names in the lockers, and I'm just like, this is so cool. And I'm like, so that's when I finally, again, kind of took the step and sent some emails to Brad Evans and Matt and Mike Clay, or not. Yeah, Matt. I sent it to actually Mike Clay first, because he was the one I kind of had been working, knew, and we had a little conversation back and forth. And I said, hey, Mike, it's really sad that we don't have a best of the best fantasy football, draft, live, Sirius XM coverage, Now, my good friend Jake Seeley had his Flex Fantasy League of Experts, and it was close. It was, but it was just, a lot of it was online. It was difficult to get there, and New York's not cheap. But it was still great, and I got invited to a couple of those as well. But I said, it's just much cooler if we can do it live in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Yep. And so that's what I said to Mike. And it was funny because within 5 minutes, Mike forwarded me an email that had been sent by Brad Evans the week before that Brad had sent to Mike and said, we really should have a best of the best fantasy draft. We just need a cool place to hold it. I said, oh, I got that.
Yes, you do.
So we put it together. I said, I've got the connections at the Hall of Fame. Let's get this done. Mike, Brad, Andy Behrens, all the guys pulled their weight with Sirius XM, got them to come, got you to come, and we had the best of the best drafting live, and it was, a great experience. And here we are, heading into 2024, and we're still rolling. And now this year we're going to have 7 Kings Classics, including a Queens Classic. So we're so excited to be able to make this into what more than I even envisioned, because I just envisioned our little, couple of leagues and best of the best. And then we added a third league, get some international players. Now we've got an IDP, we've got a dynasty, we've got a college, we've got now the Queens Classic this year for the first time. So it's just been amazing of the support from folks like you and all the big sites to come to Canton and be a part of it. So talk about your experience so far. At least, I don't get to often talk to Kings Classic fellow players here. It's usually people that are more sponsors and exhibitors, which is cool. So talk about your experience that first year drafting live on Sirius XM. I was in awe, but just because I was just like, this is so cool. But talk about your experience and the Kings Classic and how it's come, this far.
The first Kings Classic was simply magic. It was a small group.
Yeah.
It was a very small group. The expo hadn't started yet.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it was, for lack of a better word, an intimate setting where you got to know people before the draft, during the draft, after the draft. Mm-hmm. The camaraderie part is always, to me, I love the competition, but the camaraderie part is just huge.
We all went to BW3s and
yes, amazing time. And then I had never been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Right.
So walking through there, just in awe. And then to do the draft, we're in tell me the name of the room, the Gold Jacket.
It's called the Gold Jacket Lounge.
The Gold Jacket Lounge. Mm-hmm. And I know the room itself may not be the greatest of shakes. It was a big deal. It was a huge deal still being in a room called the Gold Jacket Lounge, because you knew who was in that room the week prior, the year prior, and so on and so forth. And we had a 12-team league at that time. We moved to 14 till the next year.
Right.
But I had not met almost any of these fellow analysts in person before that time.
Right.
And so, and look, I'm a dude with a job. I don't take myself very seriously.
Me neither.
But when I was in the presence of some of these other big names, it blew me away that I was in that room with them. It is amazing. And then to see how down to earth
Mhm.
pretty much everybody was.
Right.
The draft itself, I like the fact that I love when Brad Evans' vein would go out and he'd get all fired up during the auction. I always pointed that out to Brad. Love Brad. And but just the personalities, and we were able. It wasn't a boring draft. We were able to have some fun. There were barbs thrown out, and it had what a good live draft needs. And the draft now it's more comfortable because everybody. And some of the digs are predictable but fun.
Mm-hmm.
And the venue, although it's still the Hall of Fame, it's moved around a little bit, which has all been great.
Right.
And it's an irreplaceable draft.
Right.
And if people can watch that draft, I think it's a great draft to watch. And I think it's great that SiriusXM.
It would be nice if we could figure out a way to do that. Maybe someday. I mean, Hall of Fame Village does have a media department. Maybe not this year, but maybe we can look into next year. They're trying to work with like NBC Sports to be able to maybe record some of this stuff to be used for maybe a Peacock show. There's always that potential. So, like I said, that we'll get there. We'll get there. I don't know if we'll be live on Peacock, but hey, we can dream, right?
I love the fact, Bob, that when you set this up, you did a draft and an auction. I think that's beautiful to have both. Yeah. They both are so different in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the idea of relegation. I get the idea of relegation where a team gets bounced. But I think what relegation does, those who don't want to get relegated have to play safer.
Right.
If I'm in a 14-team league of Sharks, I want to swing for the fence because I don't want to come in second place. I don't want to come in fourth place.
Right.
If I'm not in first place, I'm in last place. And
if you don't get the belt, what's the point, right?
Right. And fortunately, one of the years I was able to win with that approach. But there is a level of nerves with it because, again, relegation, if you want to just stay in, you could just be safe and lay it up every year. Make sure you finish 6th or 7th, pick safe picks across the board. It's easily doable.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what I want.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And I did that last year, and I made a trade that pretty much made me get relegated. I thought it was the right trade at the time.
Yes.
And then after about 2 or 3 weeks, I realized, that was really stupid. And it probably cost me my chances of being relegated. But that's okay. That, part of the rules. In fact, I told Matt Donnelly the other day, he said something about, hey, when one of the Blanda guys move up, I want to move from the online to the Blanda. I said, well, no, somebody gets relegated back from the Jim Brown down. And he goes, oh, well, who was that? And I go, me. And he goes, wait a minute, you got relegated in your own league? And I go, hey, rules are rules, man. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna play any favorites because it's my league. It's not my league. I just, But anyway, that's that's the way and I'll earn my way back. That's my goal.
Of course.
But if I win a title in that league, that's just as good to me. I mean, where's Marcus Grant? Jeff Mann's going to be there this year. Scott Engel.
Pianowski.
On and on. So it's not like, we used to say it was kind of like A and B, but I think it's just A1 and A2.
100%.
So we're excited about that. But thank you for the thoughts on that. So like you said, so we moved into 2019, put the expo together with it. It was really nice. I think a lot of people from that 2019, when they came to the BW3s, because we didn't get into the massive weekend, all that kind of stuff. That's where everybody felt the same way that you and I did after we met everybody in 2018 was like, these guys are all really nice. I mean, they're all very down to earth. There's no egos. You can talk to Mike Clay or Brad Evans or Andy Behrens or Dave Richards or Bob Harris or whoever and have the same conversation that you and I can have, even though we know we, can't hold their jocks. But it was just very cool. And I think a lot of people from that felt like, oh, yeah, this is very cool. Let's do this again. Of course, COVID came, we didn't, but 21, 22, now here we are heading into 23. We're expecting bigger, better things. We've outgrown the hotel. We are going into the Dome, which is a 100,000 square foot, 75-yard football field in the middle of it. And we will be setting up our booths, 50 booths, a 300-seat main stage area. And that's not even on the field. That's how big this place is.
Wow.
We still have the whole field to use. So we're going to open up the field. People can throw around. We're going to have a stage in the lobby. SiriusXM is going to be in the lobby. We can have 5,000 people show up now. We're unlimited. So that's the cool part about moving to this. And, we're really excited about that. Of course, the announcement you probably heard recently is that Des Bryant is going to bring his brand to the event and is very excited. He might even play in the flag football tournament, which could be huge. It's so many people, and it's really looking forward to it. We're going to be in the Hall of Fame drafting again, but we're going to be downstairs in what they call the Nash Center, which is a big ballroom split into threes, because we got all these other Kings Classics. So the cool thing is we're going to do fan draft, the software up on the screen instead of the boards and the stickers, so we can save a little time with having to walk up and find a sticker. So we got fan draft to give us free software for all of those. So again, a lot of cool stuff coming in. Same Friday party, cornhole, flag football, Kings Classics, big expo. Same as last year, 4 panels running at the same time all day long. It's going to be awesome. So, Jim, Rotowire will be there. Now, you've been there before, but this will be the first time Rotowire's had a booth. They're hoping to come. And so talk about what you guys are doing. You've got a really cool giveaway with some codes that if people are listening to this podcast can actually get free 2 months on the Rotowire subscription. So, Jim, talk about that. Talk about Rotowire coming to the expo and being a bigger part of it this year. And then talk about that code of the giveaway you guys are going to give away starting now.
Yes, Rotowire is very excited to be a part of the expo this year. We were bought out by a parent company, gambling.com, a little more than a year ago, and the decision was made with the new company that we were going to be a little more involved. Ken Kreitz, my contact guy, your contact guy from Rotowire, made sure that we are involved in this. And so we are excited. We'll have a booth there. I will be on, I believe, 3 or 4 panels. I'm very excited to talk fantasy football and to meet as many people as possible. So that's going to be a highlight of the weekend. Of course, the Kings Classic is still going to be number 1 for me, but it has to be that way. But yeah, just meeting and seeing everybody, but the code. So if you sign up for the expo, and Bob will tell you a code that you can use to get money off the expo. But once you sign up, if you go to rotowire.com/expo, you will get a free subscription to Rotowire, all of our sports, that will begin from the time you sign up through the rotowire.com/expo through the end of August, which pretty much takes you through draft season.
2 full months.
Yes, and we are a pretty comprehensive site. Anything you need, we're churning out articles. We have great DFS tools, which I know in the preseason, some people play that. If you like the site and stay on, then you'd have in the regular season. But nonetheless, we are a comprehensive site. And if you have other sports, any sport pretty much under the sun, we've got you covered. Rotowire.com/expo.
Okay, so they don't need a code. They just go to that special website.
They have to sign up for the expo. So if they sign up for the expo, then they didn't tell me the details once you go there of what you have to prove to say that you signed up for the expo. Okay. But there'll be something in there, maybe a confirmation.
So if you're already signed up for the expo, which I know a lot of you are, a lot of you who are listening, you can go now to rotowire.com/expo and get your free 2 months worth of Rotowire. How do you say no to free? So make sure you do that. And then, of course, if you haven't bought your tickets, go there now. Use the code GIVEPASS, 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 and that will get you $20 off your weekend passes. So whether you do the all weekend or you just do the Saturday, Sunday one, gets you $20 off. So, Jim, anything else that you guys got planned, giveaways, other than the codes that you guys will be there for the weekend? Are you and Ken going to play cornhole together? Are you guys?
So we're trying to determine who is coming out there with me.
Okay.
There's a number of people in the mix. So we're waiting to make sure that finally somebody will be there with me. I don't know who that is. For a moment, Ken wanted to come for the day of the expo. We will see how that materializes. But I'm hoping to meet as many people as possible. Come and find me, because I'm going to struggle to find you, whoever you are out there. Don't be shy to come up to me. I like to talk to everybody. And I know Bob's there might be a booth on Friday. I might be at some kind of a table on Friday
That's right.
night.
So you're going to have a table at the Friday party set up so that you can promote these free giveaways for the free passes. So make sure you say hi to Jim, and he'll get you set up with that as well. Plus, he's probably the only ball guy there. No, I'm kidding.
There'll be a few, but yes,
there'll be more than one. But
and the Sirius XM show, I'll be starting on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 3 Eastern. That will start July the 8th. And so we'll certainly be talking about the Expo. Bob, you'll be on at some point before the Expo.
Appreciate
Talk that up as well. Of course, every year I have you on. That will continue this year. And definitely catch the XM show. We'd love entertaining you and hopefully giving some good fantasy knowledge on the weekends.
Awesome. Well, Jim, thank you again for coming on. Thank you again to you, Ken Kreitz, and Rotowire for being a bigger part of this year's Expo. It means a lot to me, and I know that everybody who else is involved, just to have you guys there. I want you to tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter. One more time, tell them about the whole Expo and getting a free pass, and then we'll take it out from there.
Yes, on Twitter or any social, honestly. You can find me at Jim Coventry NFL. Be great if I got to follow. I can share information with you that way. I don't dance, but I do TikTok videos. They're football. No dancing. You're lucky because I can't dance. So that's a good thing. And remember, if you sign up for the Expo, go to rotowire.com/expo, and you will get a free subscription to Rotowire through the end of August.
Beautiful. That's fantastic. Well, once again, for Jim Coventry and Rotowire, I am Bob Lung with the Fantasy Football Expo. If you haven't got tickets, go to thefantasyfootballexpo.com. Use Give Pass to save $20. So once again, I'm Bob. Everybody have a great week. Take care. God bless. We'll talk to you soon. See you in August. Hey, everybody. Do you want to continue to learn more about the Fantasy Football Expo? Well, then subscribe to our channel so you don't miss an episode. Expo registration is now open, so make sure you visit thefantasyfootballexpo.com to get your tickets now. And come and experience fantasy football's greatest weekend in Canton, Ohio this August 11th through the 13th.